Hey guys, it's Tony Thompson. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Chasing Excellence. I'm Tony Thompson, your host. I'm really excited about my guest today on Chasing Excellence, Nathan Howry, who's the president and CEO of Mortgage Inc. in New Brunswick, Texas. Nathan, for those who may not know where New Brunswick is, first of all, give us a little bit of where you're located in the big state of Texas.
Yeah, we're in the Texas Hill Country, so we're about 45 minutes south of Austin, about 20 minutes north of San Antonio. So we're in a pretty big area. We got about 5-6 million people in this area, but my town itself is about 100,000 people.
Okay, yeah, love that. Now I gotta ask, since you're in Texas, is it you're a football fan, Nathan?
I am, but I don't follow any Texas teams.
Okay.
College I do, but I grew up an Oilers fan, and so I followed them to Tennessee. So I'm a Titans fan.
Love that. I remember the Houston Oilers, man, back in the day, and so love that. So good deal. Well, first of all, Mortgage Inc. Mortgage Inc. Where did you and how did you come up with the name?
Kind of a long story, but we started out, I started this brokerage as myself. I came out of the restaurant business, banking, a bunch of different backgrounds of managing a lot of people, right? And so I started this company after about 5 years in the mortgage business, and I started as the Mortgage Maniac, right? To brand myself. People do not forget that name. It's still branded on my truck. It's branded on, some of our marketing stuff as well. But for us to grow and be able to recruit people, we couldn't really define ourselves as the Mortgage Maniac, right? As everyone as a group. And so we just brainstormed as a group of 5 or 6 loan officers and myself and came up with that name, and plus the tagline, making mortgages easy. And it took us probably a month of going back and forth saying, no, I don't like that. It's not going to work for recruiting. This will work for recruiting. This will help us grow. And that's kind of what we fell on. And obviously we had to go through and make sure that name wasn't taken as a DBA. We had to make sure that nobody else was using it. So there's a lot of stuff. We came up with probably 15 different names and vetted them all. And this is the one that we fell on.
Now, I grew up back in the day. I can actually resonate with Mortgage Maniac because I don't know if you remember, there was a song, he's a maniac. You remember that was the show? Yeah. I'm like, was that Nathan's theme song? I gotta ask.
It wasn't. No, we didn't have a theme song, man.
I'm just saying, man, I can see that though. Mortgage Maniac, you got the Maniac song, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a maniac. I'm pretty even keeled. I'm low key. I'm calm, cool, collected. But it sticks out. It stands out, and people don't forget that name. And I get phone calls just off of my truck weekly people saying, I love the name of that business. It's awesome. Even if they don't want to do any mortgages with me, right? So they do call me and say, that's awesome. I love it.
Nathan, one of the things that I really love and admire and respect about you as a person and a leader in terms of how you built your company is really how you built your company. You've got about 13 LOs right now. You're licensed in about 5 different states. And every year you guys have shown tremendous growth, which is why we wanted to have you here on Chasing Excellence to share a little bit of how you've grown and poured in to your team. Before we talk about that growth, I like to say everyone has a story of how they got into the mortgage business. Nathan, what's your story?
Long story, but starting from the beginning, my grandfather was a home builder. He built tract homes back before there were big companies like D.R. Horton and Lennar around. He was building neighborhoods. He was also in the title business. My father is in the remodeling business and has been for a long time. He used to build, custom homes. And it's just something I grew up in, working on job sites. I've done roofing, I've done painting, I've done carpentry, I've done, everything from the bottom up. no concrete work. That's tough work. But um, from there, I kind of created my own path. I was a realtor in Austin, Texas for about 10 years. Um, Not gonna lie, I wasn't good at it. I didn't really like it. For me, going and showing houses to customers and spending my time doing that, it just wasn't something that really interested me. And so, fast forward a few years later, I called my preferred lender and I said, "Hey, I want to try my shot, at the mortgage side of this thing." And so I joined his team as basically an LOA, and within, a month, he had gotten rid of the processor that was on staff, and I got thrown into the fire. And that's how I learned. And I learned really well that way, trying to figure out, problem solve along the way without much oversight, right? And 2 months later, I was the branch manager, and we were managing, branch in West Virginia. We had one in Texas. We were in Kentucky, kind of in the Midwest, and it just kind of grew from there. We were in retail. My, my boss at the time, my branch manager at the time, taught me a lot about the business, taught me a lot about the back end of the business, how the margins work, how, corporates get paid, all of that good stuff. And we talked and talked and talked for years. And we said, we got to start a broker shop. This isn't, we're paying for other people's private jets. We're paying for their Lamborghinis. You know what? We want to pass along these savings of running a broker shop to the customer and give them the best deal possible. And that's kind of how this all started for me, right? I'm a very fair person. I want to be fair to our customers. I want to be fair to our loan officers. I want to make sure that everybody wins. And that's the business I'm in, is making sure everybody wins.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about your journey is that not only are you a top producer yourself, typically you're doing anywhere from 35 to 40, 50 million a year in personal production, but you're really focused on helping your originators elevate by doing what's right for the customer, which has been what I would say is part of your secret sauce in terms of the success of Mortgage Inc. thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. My goal is to ensure that all of my loan officers, and whether they get there or not, we're going to shoot for it, make six figures, right? That's our goal. And if I have to do that by handing off my personal business, I'm going to do that. I'm going to, I have weekly phone calls with most of the team, one on one, to see where their production's at, see what they're doing on a weekly basis, make sure to hold them accountable. I think that's really the only way to grow, as a producer, as a loan officer, is to have someone, have that accountability factor for you and hold you to it, right? Hold your feet to the fire. For me, the only way I know how to work is work hard,
Yeah.
work long hours, push through, keep it going. I mean, that's just
Well,
how I was raised.
well, that's also how you achieve excellence, which is why at the end of the day, sometimes when I talk and I speak out in the marketplace, there's really no easy way to excellence. There's no easy way to success, no matter what industry you're in. Let's talk a little bit about the industry today and what's going on. As a broker or owner and a top producer yourself, what do you see as the biggest challenge in our industry right now, Nathan?
I think the biggest challenge for, anyone in the mortgage industry right now is the volatility in the market, right? Interest rates, we may get 5, 6, 7 interest rate changes per day, right? We were in a good spot about 6 weeks ago before this kind of war started overseas. And then rates skyrocketed. They bumped up a full percent almost. And now they're coming back down a little bit. But I think the volatility, when you're talking to customers and to say, hey, I want a quote on, what you can do for me today. And I say, look, this quote's good for the next 5 minutes. We'll look at it again, when you're under contract or whatever. But it's very volatile. So it's hard to give your clients a great experience and have them understand that, we can't control where the market goes. All we can do is get you
Yeah.
in the best option possible.
No, love it, love it. If I'm that originator out there that hasn't made it to Nathan's level yet, what would be the one piece of advice, particularly in a very cyclical, dynamic market that we're in today? What one thing would you share with the audience to say, hey, if I were you today, here's the one thing that I would focus on to chase excellence.
I think over communication. is what
Mm.
I would chase, right? That's I mean, it's a sign of respect to communicate. If somebody texts you, emails you, calls you, you get right back to them, and you respect their time and they respect your time. And I think that people, you know, customers, whether it's an underwriter, a processor, anybody is going to respect you if you're going to respond to them in a quick manner, in a timely manner. You know, I know a lot of people in this industry that won't call back clients for a couple of days, or they ghost them, or they go on vacation, don't tell anybody about it. I mean, to me, communication is the number one factor in being able to um, get to the top level in this business, right? People are going to resonate with you creating that relationship versus you just, hey, this is a numbers game. You're just another number to me, whatever. I want to create that relationship. You know, I learn about my customers' dogs' names, their kids' names, what they did in a past life, you know, whatever, anything it is that I can create that relationship and friendship with and keep that friendship going, right? Those customers come back to me. I
Yeah.
don't have to
You know,
chase them down.
here's a couple of nuggets for those out in the marketplace. Um, Relationship currency, what matters most. What I hear you saying, Nathan, is first of all, communicate. As an industry, I personally think we do a really bad job of personal communication. You can have all the tech you want, you can have the AI bots and the chat bots, but at the end of the day, there's nothing like talking to a customer where they know that you're that advisor that they can trust, good or bad, they're going to hear from you. The other thing that I heard you say, though, is making sure at the end of the day that by focusing on what matters most, which is getting to know that customer and making them feel like they are the only customer, will actually yield lots of dividends in the forms of increasing your brand, more referrals, and also a great customer experience, which is also ultimately what every loan officer should be striving for.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's not something that happens overnight either, right? I mean, it takes years
Yeah.
to build that up. You know, you have one customer at a time and you go one day at a time. It's really easy and simple if you follow that plan.
We talked earlier about biggest challenge in our industry right now. From your purview, Nathan, what do you see as an opportunity? As an originator out in the market, or as you're growing your brokerage right now.
You know, for us, what we're doing right now is focusing on investors and investment properties. The primary market across the country, and I have peers all over the place. We talk all the time. It's slow. It's not busy right now. Houses aren't moving. In my neighborhood specifically, there's 78 houses on the market. They've been sitting there for
Wow.
6 months. You know, 2 years ago that wasn't the case. They'd sit there for 6 minutes and they were gone. You know, we're in a buyer's market now. A lot of customers or a lot of sellers don't realize that, or they don't have the information, to be able to negotiate those terms. But really, that's the case for me.
Man, I love that. I love that. We talked earlier about your have you built from Mortgage Maniac to Mortgage Inc. What makes Mortgage Inc. different than the average brokerage?
Yeah, speed, communication. We have in-house processing. We have two processors that are amazing. They are the most organized people on the planet. They make our jobs a lot easier for us. They really are. I mean, we have everything down to a science. Kind of took everything that I didn't like about working for the big retail not brokerages, but retail mortgage companies, took everything we didn't like, everything that wasn't working correctly. Anytime we had kind of a bottleneck in the process, and we fixed that on our end. A hybrid of broker and mini correspondent in our business on our side. It gives us some flexibility um, with being able to run different scenarios, for customers and things like that. And being a broker shop and having all of these loan programs that are outside of the box, right? Where it's not just FHA, conventional, VA, USDA, right? We're doing a ton of non QM. We probably do, out of the 500 loans we'll do this year, 300 of them will be DSCR for us. And we're very
Wow.
hyper focused on the investment market because those
So
guys
you're
aren't going away.
really You're really looking at creating a niche or finding a niche. So that's another nugget for those in the audience. What's your niche? Sometimes you can be general when the market presents those opportunities, but sometimes in unstable markets, you've got to find a niche and go deep into that. And I love what you're doing on your niche as well, because that piece of that market on the investment side, I too don't see going away as well, Nathan.
Yeah. And we've partnered with one of the biggest build to rent developers in the country, and we are their mortgage team. And so it really,
Love that.
will develop they develop properties, we sell them to the end investor. It's a full ecosystem. There's property management, the tenants are in place, it's a brand new house, and the end investor is an individual. We don't sell to any big businesses or big corporations or anything like that. We're really in it for to help create wealth.
Man, there's nothing more than making money with a purpose. And so I love that. And that's obviously shows why you've been successful as a broker owner, why you've been successful as a top originator as well, is because you're not looking at the transaction, but you're looking at one, the client, and two, you're looking at that relationship to say, how can I create an even bigger relationship through an ecosystem, which is what this is all about when you talk about and think about building a business that's built to last, especially when you're trying to become excellent.
Yes, sir.
I tell you,
Agreed.
Nathan, I definitely enjoyed our conversations, man, but I never like to leave chasing excellence without talking about gratitude. What are you most grateful for?
To be honest, I'm most grateful for in my personal life, my family, my kids, my wife, my faith, my fitness. Right, we take those three things, start out every day, and then we move into the workday, and then those three things come back around at the end of the workday as well. Right, so
Yeah.
for me personally, those three things are gratitude wise, are the biggest things in my life, and that's why I do this. Right, I do this for my loan officers, for their families, and for my family, and our clients' families too. Right, especially our investors that are here trying to build wealth. But I'm very happy at the point I'm at in my career and where I'm at in my life. And if we had a lot more time to get into it, I could go into the background of growing up and all that. And to be where I'm at today and where my company is at today is it's amazing. I never could have expected it.
Well, you know what? One of the things that I love, and as we've gotten to know each other for a little while, you said something that if the audience didn't pick up, I call it, the three pillars: family, faith, and fitness. And in
Hmm.
this industry or in any industry where you're in sales and you're trying to pursue the next level, a higher level of excellence, you've got to have those three pillars. Family, at least from my perspective, family to always support you, the ins and outs, because at the end of the day, we know, hey, going from Mortgage Maniac to Mortgage Inc. and growing and building a great brand in Texas and several other states doesn't happen overnight. And it takes the support of a committed and loving family and a network. The faith, you got to believe that I'm doing the right thing, because every day, as we know in this industry, is not going to be like you say, hey, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, we're a little bit better than where we are today. Every day, every week seems like there's a different challenge that comes into our industry. So you, as an originator, you got to not look at today, but you got to think about tomorrow. So I love that faith piece. And then the fitness piece, that third pillar, Nathan, I think a lot of originators, this is just me personally, observation. I'm usually in 2 or 3 different cities a week, but the fitness piece is just as important as the other two pillars, because if you are not fit, meaning if you're not on your A game, you can't love and serve your family, and you won't have and be able to have, in my opinion, the dedication and commitment of your faith to serve that right, to allow you to be the best that you can be and to achieve even more from an excellent standpoint, man. So that was deep. Faith, family, and fitness. Love that.
I agree. And fitness isn't just about going to the gym and working out or running or anything. It's mental fitness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't drink anymore. I
Yeah.
don't have any vices. My head's clear. Everything's good. And I know in this business, it can be stressful and you can turn to those vices. But for me, turning all that stuff off and cutting out all that outside noise,
Yeah.
it's really propelled our business into the next level.
There's as I coach and work with a lot of leaders, one of the things I always talk about is the corporate athlete, becoming a corporate athlete. Think of yourself. Most athletes, football, basketball, soccer, baseball, it doesn't matter. When it's in season and even out of season, even more so, when they're really serious about their career, they're looking at how and what they do every day, from mental to the spiritual to the fitness, in terms of what they eat, what they drink, what they put in their bodies, their mindset. Why? Because they're an athlete. And a lot of times I hope originators understand you are a corporate athlete as well. Now, you may be a D2 or D3 or a D1 athlete. You can take the pick, but you are an athlete. And so I love that philosophy of how you look at your life, your body, your time, and bring that back into your business, man. That again is one of the things I've admired as I've got to know about you and your journey and where you've started. And we're going to get you back. We're going to go and talk about those early roots, because I think, again, your journey, your story, Nathan, can inspire a lot of other individuals to achieve that next level of excellence as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate everything, Tony. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed getting to know you as well.
Well, I tell you what, man, again, congratulations to you for what you've done and what you're getting ready to do, and how you're helping your originators and your team elevate to that next level, elevate to a level of even more excellence. And so, David, excuse me, Nathan, I want to thank you for joining me on Chasing Excellence. And I can't wait for us to kind of go to part two. You'll talk about, oftentimes we talk about and look at success today, but many people don't see behind the scenes. And so I want the next episode, the next conversation, I want to go back to those down days, those bad days, because really that is what makes a person. That's what makes a leader, is what they've been through in the past, that gives them the wisdom to look and say, hey, been there, done that. Here's what I'm learning from that. Again, someone in our audience needs to hear that story, because they're going through that right now. And that's why we have you on Chasing Excellence, because they're trying to become a little bit better. So thank you again, Nathan, for joining us, brother.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I can tell you this, I've been at the lowest of the low and the highest of the high, and the low is not where you want to be. That's for
Ooh,
sure.
I,
So we'll save that for next time.
he's been to the lowest of the low, and he can tell you that the lowest is not where you want to be. I love that. And yes, there is guys, there's a part two coming. I promise you, we're going to hear and we're going to talk more about that. I'm Tony Thompson, your host for Chasing Excellence. Thank you for joining me, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Take care.
Whatever is necessary.